Before Elon Musk became the richest man in the world, before rockets, electric cars, and internet satellites, he was just a skinny kid sleeping on the floor of an office, coding through the night. But this story? It doesn't start with him. It starts decades earlier, with a woman walking out the door at 5 a.m. in South Africa. Not to chase fame, not to make headlines, but to earn just enough money to feed her 3 kids. Her name is Maye Musk. And she's not just Elon's mother. She's the reason he exists, the reason he kept going, and the reason you've ever heard his name at all. While most stories focus on the billion-dollar companies, this one zooms in on the woman who sacrificed everything quietly, without applause, without guarantees, and without ever giving up. Maye Musk raised her children alone. She worked 5 jobs. She lived paycheck to paycheck. But through all of it, she raised 3 ambitious, fearless adults who now shape the future of the world. This isn't a fairy tale. There was no luck, no miracle, just a single mom who refused to break. She didn't just model for fashion magazines. She modeled perseverance. She didn't give lectures, she lived by example. And while Elon may build rockets, Maye was the launchpad. So before we go any further, let's flip the spotlight. Let's take a moment to see the full picture, not just of a billionaire, but of the woman behind him. This is the true story of Maye Musk. And it just might change the way you see success, forever. Shall we begin? Before Maye Musk was a model on billboards in Times Square or walking the red carpet at the Met Gala. She was just a curious, sharp-minded girl growing up in a family of real-life explorers. She was born Maye Haldeman in 1948, in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada, but her journey took a bold turn at just 2 years old. When her parents packed up the family and moved to Pretoria, South Africa, it wasn't a conventional move, and nothing about her upbringing was conventional. Her father, Joshua Haldeman, was a chiropractor and amateur archaeologist, but more than that, he was a dreamer with wings. He bought a single-engine propeller plane and flew his family across Africa. Not for fun, not for fame, but in search of a lost city, the mythical lost city of the Kalahari. Armed with maps, canned food, and blind determination, they soared over endless desert landscapes, often landing in remote villages or camping under the stars. That's what Maye grew up around, not comfort, but courage. Her parents taught her something most kids never learn: if you want to find your own way, you don't wait for the road, you fly over the wilderness and make your own path. By 15, Maye was already modeling, not because she dreamed of fame or fashion shows, but because it was practical. It helped pay the bills. It gave her independence. But Maye was never just a pretty face. While she posed for magazines, she also buried her head in textbooks, studying nutrition, eventually earning 2 master's degrees in dietetics. She wasn't raised to seek attention. She was raised to solve problems, to explore, to work hard, and to think for herself. That sense of adventure and resilience, carved out of desert skies and late-night study sessions, became the foundation of everything Maye Musk would do. It would carry her through heartbreak, through poverty, and eventually, through a new life built on nothing but grit. In a world that often expects women to choose between beauty and brains, Maye chose both, and added bravery into the mix. This is where her story really begins. Not with runways, not with red carpets, but with a young girl in a dusty airplane, chasing ancient legends over the sands of Africa, and learning that the only limit to her life would be the size of her courage. And as you'll soon see, she passed that lesson on. In her 20s, Maye Musk was already balancing more than most people twice her age. She was building a career in nutrition, modeling to pay the bills, and earning academic honors. She was smart, self-driven, and independent. Then came Elon Musk. He was an engineer from South Africa, charming, intelligent, and at first, everything Maye thought a life partner should be. They married in 1970. On the surface, it seemed like a natural next step, but what looked like stability quickly turned into something darker. Behind closed doors, the marriage was turbulent, emotionally and physically abusive. As Maye would later reveal, it wasn't the kind of thing she talked about publicly at the time. Back then, society didn't encourage women to speak out, especially not women raising children. So she stayed silent. She endured. In less than a decade, they had 3 children: Elon, Kimball, and Tosca. Maye poured herself into motherhood, teaching her kids to be curious, resourceful, and strong. But the strain inside the home only grew worse. Eventually, she reached a breaking point. At 31, Maye made a decision that would change everything. she left the marriage. No money, no house, no car, just herself and her 3 kids. She walked out not because it was easy, but because staying would have destroyed her. This was South Africa in the late 1970s. Not a time or place that welcomed single mothers with open arms. But Maye didn't flinch. She rented a small, bare apartment. She worked any job she could find, modeling, teaching, giving public talks, and consulting on nutrition, all while raising 3 young kids on her own. They didn't have luxuries. Sometimes, they barely had groceries, but Maye made sure they had what mattered: love, structure, and a relentless example of perseverance. She didn't sugarcoat life. She taught her kids to be responsible, to think for themselves. "I'm not going to chase you to do your homework," she told them. "If you fail, it's your fault." And that tough love? It worked. The years following her divorce were some of the hardest of her life, but also the most defining. They revealed what Maye was truly made of. Not just grace and beauty, but grit, the kind of quiet strength that doesn't make headlines, but builds empires, one meal, one rent check, one scraped together opportunity at a time. Her marriage didn't break her. It became the fire that forged her. And in that fire, she taught her children something priceless. You can rebuild from nothing. And you can do it with dignity. After leaving her marriage, Maye Musk stepped into a new life, one defined by uncertainty, exhaustion, and endless responsibility. But she didn't complain. She didn't wait for a rescue. She rolled up her sleeves and went to work. With 3 young children and no financial safety net, Maye had to stretch every penny. They lived in a tiny apartment in Johannesburg. There was no car, no housekeeper, no babysitter, just a mother doing everything she could to keep the lights on and the fridge stocked. She worked 5 jobs at once, modeling on weekends, teaching nutrition at night, giving health talks, taking private clients, writing reports until 2 a.m. in the same kitchen where she prepared spaghetti dinners for her kids. This wasn't glamorous, it was survival. But what made Maye remarkable was how she made space for growth inside that struggle. Her kids didn't just watch her work, they absorbed her values. Hard work wasn't a lesson, it was their way of life. Elon walked miles to the library because they didn't have a car. Kimball and Tosca learned how to navigate life without luxuries. When the kids asked for help with homework, Maye didn't hover. She simply said, "Figure it out," and they did. She didn't micromanage, she modeled independence. Every evening was a balancing act: meals, chores, studies, client calls, sleep, when she could. Some nights, she sewed curtains out of old sheets. Other times, she patched up school uniforms or stretched a small meal to feed 4. There were no handouts, no just-in-case savings. If Maye didn't work, there was no rent. If she didn't hustle, the kids didn't eat. But she kept going, quietly, relentlessly. There's a story Elon told years later, that his mother never raised her voice. Never panicked, even when things were tough. She didn't show it, she stayed steady, and that calm confidence gave her kids something powerful: belief. They believed they could take on the world, because they watched her do it every day. Maye didn't talk about empowerment. She lived it. She didn't talk about feminism. She embodied it. She wasn't raising kids to play it safe, she was raising builders. Dreamers, survivors. And somehow, through all the chaos, she kept modeling, not for fame, for survival. Every photo shoot was another bag of groceries. Every gig meant another month of rent. She did what needed to be done. And she did it with dignity. She didn't have time to feel sorry for herself. She was too busy building a life, brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. This wasn't just motherhood, it was leadership. And it was the foundation for everything her children would become. In 1989, Elon Musk made a bold decision, at just 17 years old. He left South Africa for Canada. He barely had a plan. But he had a goal: to chase opportunity in a place where imagination wasn't a liability. He packed a suitcase, scraped together a few $100s, and boarded a flight alone. Maye watched him go, proud, but deeply aware of the risk. A few months later, she followed. She sold nearly everything she owned: her furniture, her car, her belongings, to afford the move. There was no promise of stability, no job waiting on the other side, just a mother determined to be close to her son. She landed in Toronto with her daughter Tosca and started over again. From scratch, they rented a small room in someone else's home. The 3 of them shared one bed. Elon, already in college, slept on a mattress on the floor whenever he came to visit. Every cent Maye earned went to rent, school supplies, and basic necessities. But she wasn't discouraged. She had done this before, reinvented herself. Survived. She could do it again. During the day, Maye hustled as always. She picked up nutrition consulting work where she could, gave health talks at local centers, and continued modeling when the opportunity came. At night, she edited reports, worked on academic papers, and searched for more ways to keep the lights on. People would see her walking through downtown Toronto in heels, makeup, and red lipstick, and assume she had it all figured out. They had no idea. Behind the polished appearance was a woman who had risked everything, again. She had no fallback plan. But what she did have was focus, drive, and an unshakable belief in her children. Elon didn't ask her to come to Canada. She just knew she needed to be there, to support him, to be close to her family, to keep showing them that they weren't in this alone. Even when things were tight, and they were always tight, Maye never begged, never complained. She kept her dignity. She kept showing up. This move, like everything else in her life, wasn't about chasing comfort. It was about chasing potential. She knew her kids were meant for something bigger, and she was willing to follow them to the ends of the earth to make sure they had the chance to figure out what that was. In many ways, Toronto wasn't a step down. It was a launchpad, because what Maye gave her children in those years wasn't just food or shelter. She gave them presence. She gave them belief. She gave them the silent, steady kind of love that says, I'll be there, even if I have to start over 100 times. That was Maye Musk's superpower. Not wealth, not status, just relentless, unconditional support, and that made all the difference. Maye Musk didn't raise her children to follow rules. She raised them to challenge them. In the small rooms they shared, with cheap curtains and second-hand furniture, there were no lectures about success, only examples. The kids watched their mom work 5 jobs, keep her word, and move continents with nothing but belief. And that belief paid off. Elon was the first to take off, though take off might be too glamorous a word for someone who slept on office floors and showered at the YMCA. In the 1990s, he co-founded Zip2, an online city guide for newspapers. At a time when most people barely understood the internet, he coded nonstop, surviving on takeout and adrenaline. Maye watched from a distance, proud, but never meddling. That wasn't her style. She let her kids figure things out, just like she had when Elon sold Zip2 to Compaq for $307 million. He could have retired. Instead, he rolled everything into PayPal. Then, when PayPal sold to eBay, he did it again, this time betting on electric cars and rockets. Most people laughed. Maye didn't. She simply said, well, I hope you get funding for that. Meanwhile, her second son, Kimball, was forging his own path. After working with Elon on early ventures, Kimball turned to food, but not just restaurants. He wanted to change the way people think about food entirely. He launched The Kitchen, a chain of community-focused restaurants that emphasized sustainability, healthy eating, and local sourcing. Later, he co-founded Square Roots, an urban farming startup growing food in shipping containers. Tosca, the youngest, went into film. She founded Passionflix, a streaming service dedicated to romance adaptations. It was a bold move in a crowded industry, but she believed in it. And Maye believed in her. What tied all 3 siblings together wasn't money, fame, or even ambition. It was vision. Each of them saw a gap in the world, and felt empowered to fill it. They didn't wait for permission. And Maye? She never tried to control their futures. She gave them space, gave them tools, and let them choose. People often ask her how she raised such successful kids. Her answer is simple. I let them be themselves. I worked hard, and I didn't spoil them. That's it. She didn't chase them to do homework. She didn't hover. She created a home where thinking differently wasn't punished, it was encouraged. Maye didn't raise followers. She raised founders. And while the world watched Elon build rockets and electric cars, she knew none of it would have happened without the messy, uncertain, underpaid years, the years they all struggled together. That's the thing about success. It often starts where no one is looking. In tiny kitchens, on mattress floors, in silence, and sometimes in the unwavering heart of a mother. By the time most people hit their 50s, society gently nudges them to slow down, retire, relax, fade quietly into the background. Maye Musk didn't get that memo. While many women her age were being told they were past their prime, Maye was just entering hers. With silver hair and decades of experience behind her, she did something few dared. She doubled down on who she truly was. She stopped coloring her hair. She stopped trying to look younger. She stopped pretending that aging was something to hide. Instead, she leaned into it, with elegance, power, and purpose. In an industry obsessed with youth, Maye's decision was radical, but it paid off. At 69, she became a CoverGirl spokesperson, the oldest in the brand's history. Her face, framed by striking white hair and an effortless smile, began appearing in global campaigns. She modeled for major brands, walked runways, starred in commercials, and even appeared in Beyoncé's Haunted music video. But her second act wasn't just about beauty. It was about representation, about redefining what aging can look like, especially for women. Maye didn't let the industry decide when she was done. She decided. She once said, "I'm living proof that you can look good and feel great at any age." And she proved it, photo after photo, campaign after campaign. But here's the part people don't always see. She didn't return to modeling because she needed the money. She had built a career in nutrition, raised 3 incredible kids, and rebuilt her life more times than most. She didn't have to work. She wanted to. Because for Maye, work was never just about income. It was about independence, identity, and influence. It was about showing women, at every stage of life, that they don't have to disappear. They can evolve, even as her son Elon became one of the most famous men on the planet. Maye didn't ride on his fame. She made her own. She continued giving lectures on health and wellness. She published a memoir, A Woman Makes a Plan, sharing her story with women around the world. And she kept walking the walk, literally and figuratively, in a world that often defines women by their age or status. Maye Musk became a living contradiction, older, but bolder, a mother, but also a brand, a grandmother, but still a trailblazer. She proved that reinvention isn't just for the young. It's for the brave. And Maye Musk? She's been brave her whole life. This chapter of her story wasn't a comeback. It was a continuation, a celebration of everything she'd earned, and everything she was still becoming. Because Maye never settled, she evolved, on her terms, in her time, and in doing so, she gave aging a whole new face. Maye Musk never had a formal, parenting method. No best-selling books, no flashcards, no helicoptering. Her approach was simple and powerful. She didn't tell her kids what to be. She gave them the space to become. In a world full of over-planned childhoods, where every moment is scheduled and every success micromanaged, Maye's philosophy stood out. She worked hard, she set the example, but she didn't control her children's dreams. She let them figure it out. When Elon became obsessed with books, she didn't limit his reading. He devoured encyclopedias and science fiction for hours. When he taught himself computer programming at 12, she didn't interfere, she encouraged it. And when he told her he wanted to build electric cars and rockets to Mars, she didn't laugh. She didn't say, "Be realistic." She said, "I hope you get funding." That was her style. Firm, but freeing. Maye held her kids accountable. If they failed a test or missed a deadline, she didn't make excuses. If you don't do your homework, she often said, "It's your fault." It wasn't cold, it was honest. She believed in consequences, but she also believed in capability. And it wasn't just Elon. Kimball was raised with the same mindset. Curious, hands-on, and entrepreneurial. He explored food, farming, and sustainability without being pushed in any particular direction. Tosca, too, was supported in her artistic ambitions. Whether she wanted to act, direct, or start her own streaming company, Maye was always there. Not to manage, but to cheer her on. The secret to Maye's parenting wasn't magic. It was trust. She trusted her kids to try, to fail, to learn, to bounce back, and they trusted her to be there, stable, present, and always working hard to keep the family moving forward. Maye didn't spoil them. She didn't shield them from reality. She taught them resilience by living it every single day. When people ask her how she raised such successful children, her answer is refreshingly clear. "I let them be themselves. I worked hard, and I didn't spoil them." That's it. No fancy parenting trends, no pressure to be perfect. Just love with boundaries, support with freedom, structure with space. It's easy to celebrate Elon Musk for his genius, or Kimball for his creativity, or Tosca for her vision. But behind all of it is a mother who never tried to control their future, only to make sure they had the confidence to build it themselves. Maye Musk didn't just raise kids. She raised problem solvers. She didn't raise followers. She raised fearless thinkers. And in a world where parenting often means doing too much, she showed the quiet power of knowing when to step back and let your children grow. When people think of Maye Musk today, They might picture the silver-haired model in a sleek gown at the Met Gala, or on the cover of fashion magazines at 70. But her legacy isn't defined by photographs or red carpets. It's defined by what, and who, she built. Maye's greatest accomplishment isn't fame. It's the quiet, powerful foundation she laid for her family. She didn't just raise children. She raised innovators, creators, and leaders. Her influence echoes in every company Elon launches, in every meal Kimball serves with purpose, and in every film Tosca directs with heart. But even beyond her children, Maye's story has touched millions. Why? Because she represents what so many people feel but rarely see celebrated: the strength of a woman who just kept going. She didn't have a perfect roadmap. She faced abuse, poverty, isolation, and uncertainty, but she showed up, every day, with no spotlight, with no guarantee of success, with no one handing her anything. She represents single mothers who work 3 jobs, older women who feel invisible in youth-obsessed industries, immigrants who start over in a new country with nothing but hope. And she does it without bitterness, without seeking sympathy, with elegance, grit, and humor. In interviews, she's unapologetically honest. She talks about aging, sexism, surviving hard times, not to shock, but to share, to connect, to empower. She reminds us that reinvention is always possible. That strength can look like a woman carrying her own bags through an airport while her billionaire son gets chauffeured to meetings. She never bragged about her kids' success. She didn't need to. Their lives are her legacy. And she's not done. Maye continues to write, speak, model, and advocate for women of all ages. She uses her platform to push back against outdated ideas of what women should be after 50, 60, or 70. She encourages authenticity over perfection, effort over image. She once said, "I never thought life would be easy, but I always thought I could make it work." And she did. That's the impact of Maye Musk, not loud, not flashy, but deep, lasting. She didn't chase power. She embodied it, not through dominance, but through consistency, through showing up, through never giving up, through believing in something even when no one else did. Maye Musk's life isn't just an inspiration. It's a roadmap for mothers, dreamers, and anyone starting from nothing. Her legacy is not in the headlines. It's in the shadows she stood in, the strength she carried, and the generations she lifted. This is what real impact looks like. What do you picture when you hear the word power? A CEO in a corner office? A billionaire launching rockets? A global influencer on a stage? Maye Musk redefines that image entirely. Her power wasn't loud. It didn't come from titles or wealth. It came from quiet persistence. From doing the hard things when no one was watching. From showing up, every single day, for her children, for herself, and for the life she was determined to build. This is mom power. The kind of power that packs lunches before dawn and edits reports past midnight. The kind that sells everything just to follow a child across the world for a shot at a better future. The kind that doesn't need credit, but deserves it all. Behind every SpaceX launch, every Tesla rolling off the line, every PayPal transaction in the early days, there's the imprint of Maye Musk. Not because she built the companies, but because she built the person who dared to build them. When Elon was bullied, she stood by him. When he dreamed of Mars, she didn't doubt, she simply said, "I hope you get funding." When he was broke, sleeping on factory floors, she flew across the world just to bring him food and check if he was okay. That's power. But Maye didn't stop there. She built her own life, again and again. As a dietitian, as a model, as a voice for women, aging, and resilience. She didn't let the world define her by age, status, or motherhood. She chose her own definition. And then she lived it, fully, unapologetically. She proved that women don't expire. That mothers can still be models. That reinvention isn't about having it all, it's about giving your all. No matter the odds. And maybe that's the most inspiring part. Maye Musk's story isn't about raising a billionaire. It's about what happens when a woman believes in herself, and then passes that belief on. So the next time you see a rocket break the sky, or hear Elon's name in the headlines, remember where it really started. In a tiny kitchen in South Africa, with a mother sewing curtains out of old sheets, whispering to her children, "You'll figure it out." That's the essence of mom power. It doesn't make noise, it makes change. It doesn't seek praise, it plants seeds. And one day, those seeds grow into something the world can't ignore. If Maye's story moved you, share it. If you know a mother like her, thank her. And if you're building something, anything, remember, behind every extraordinary human, There's someone who believed first. Usually, it's mom.